All right, Munchkins, here is your homework for this week. So just follow along as I read. For teens, a good mood depends on good sleep. Sleeping less than 8 hours or more than 10 makes teenagers feel worse the next day. How many hours of sleep do you get a night? Likely not as much as Andrew Fulingi finds teenagers should get in his new study. In this informational text, Meenakshi Pravune discusses how many hours of sleep teenagers should get at each night to be at their best the next day. As you read, take notes on why teenagers may not be getting enough sleep. For families with teenagers, school nights may fall into a familiar pattern. Parents urge their kids to go to bed early, but teens would rather stay up late. Maybe they have homework or want to spend time with friends. Or maybe it's just hard to fall asleep. But a new study confirms that adolescents need 8 to 10 hours of sleep at night to feel their best the next day. As kids reach adolescence, they often face increasing workloads and responsibilities. Just a reminder, adolescence is your teenage years. But they are not yet adults. Their bodies and brains are still changing. As a result, their sleep needs are like that of a developing child, says Rafael Pelayo. He is a sleep doctor at the Stanford Center for Sleep Sciences and Medicine in California. He was not involved in the new study. Adolescence is sometimes referred to as the perfect storm of problems of sleep, says Pelayo. On one hand, teens need regular sleep to be mentally and physically healthy, but their internal clocks shift during this period. Their bodies want to stay awake later at night and sleep later in the morning. School starts early, though. As a result, Pelayo estimates that 80 to 90% of teens do not get enough sleep. That missed sleep has consequences. Sleep-deprived kids are more prone to mental and physical illnesses. Sleepy drivers face a heightened risk of car accidents, the top cause of teenage death. But too much sleep can have its own problems, such as leaving teens with a sour mood upon awakening. Andrew Fulingi studies that the mental health of adolescents at the University of California, Los Angeles. He wanted to understand which sleep habits help teens feel and perform their best. To find out, his team surveyed 419 students. Each was between the ages of 13 and 19. Every day for 2 weeks, these volunteers recorded when they fell asleep and woke up. They also rated their moods and feelings the next day, such as their happiness, anxiety, and pain. Most students reported good moods after a night of 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Too much sleep and too little sleep are both extremes, says Pelayo, and both were linked with problems. Within that 8 to 10 hour range, older kids seem to need the least sleep. A 17 or 18-year-old does not need as much sleep as a 14-year-old in order to function on a daily basis. Fulingi found, but he adds they still need a sizable amount of sleep. The team published its findings August 18th in the Journal of Clinical Child and Adolescent Psychology. Even among kids the same age, everyone needed a slightly different amount of sleep to feel good. One reason could be the health issues that differ among them. For instance, in the new study, kids with anxiety and depression seem to need more sleep to function well. Sleep is a lot like appetite, Pelayo says. Just as people eat different amounts of food daily, sleep patterns between healthy people also may differ. Choosing snoozing. Biologically, kids' bodies shift toward a later schedule during the teenage years. They become more like night owls and less like early risers, says Fulingi. But despite the change in their internal body clocks, school start times and other schedules don't change. We have set up a system that's very difficult for many teenagers and some kids who might be at risk for mental and behavioral health problems, he concludes. One way to help teens get enough sleep is to have school start later. Some school districts have already done this. They found that the later times let the kids sleep more. They also have seen fewer car accidents, higher test scores, and better graduation rates. Because of this, California lawmakers are trying to change school start times in their state. If they succeed, California middle and high schools could start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. But until schools change their start times, teenagers have to help themselves. Pelayo suggests teens sleep for 10 hours each night for a week or two. This will let them figure out how much sleep they need to feel their best. Sleeping more on weekends to make up for missing sleep during the week isn't a good idea, though. Filinghi warns that getting different amounts of sleep each night can be bad for mental health. Pelayo agrees. The amount of sleep you get on weekdays and weekends should be the same, he says. We don't starve ourselves of food on weekdays and gorge on the weekends, he points out. We shouldn't do that with sleep either. When you're done reading, you'll go to the page 4 and start on your text-dependent questions. The first one, for part A, which statement best expresses the central idea of the text? Remember, when you are identifying the central idea, this is what the text is all about. So think about the who, the what, the when, the why, the how questions that we do in our central idea chart. A, teenagers require a unique amount of sleep to fully function, which depends on their specific age and the individual demands of their body. B, adults who did not get enough sleep during their teenage years showed slower mental health development than those who did get enough sleep. C, teenagers function better during the day if they are allowed to follow their internal clock and sleep as much as they can. D, sleeping for 8 to 10 hours a night supports teenagers' mental development and guarantees that teens perform better in school. Number 2, which quote from the text best supports the answer to part A? So which one of these best supports the central idea of the text? A, their bodies want to stay awake later at night and sleep later in the morning. School starts early though. Paragraph 3. B, too much sleep and too little sleep are both extremes, says Pelayo, and both were linked with problems. Paragraph 6. C, even among kids the same age, everyone needed a slightly different amount of sleep to feel good. One reason could be health issues that differ among them. Paragraph 9. D, they found that later times let kids sleep more. They also have seen fewer car accidents, higher test scores, and better graduation rates. Paragraph 13. All right, number 3. How does paragraph 13 contribute to the development of ideas in the text? Before you answer this question, you need to go back in the text and look at paragraph 13. So on this page, we have paragraph 10, 11, 12, 13. Reread this part, and then come back to answer this question. So number 3, I'm going to just go back and reread it because I already know. 11, 12, 13. Okay. One way to help teens get enough sleep is to have school start later. Some school districts have accidents. Some school districts have already done this. They found that later times let kids sleep more. They also have seen fewer car accidents, higher test scores, and better graduation rates. Because of this, California lawmakers are trying to change school start times in their state. If they succeed, California middle and high schools could start no later than 8:30. So based off paragraph 13, how does it contribute to the development of the ideas in the text? A, it shows how easy it is for schools to allow teenagers to sleep longer. B, it emphasizes the positive outcomes of starting school later for teenagers. C, it points out how uncommon it is for teenagers to go to school later in the U.S. D, it explains why many states are hesitant to start school at a later time. Number 4, what is the author's main purpose in the text? Is it to A, to argue that all schools should start later in the day? Is it B, to warn teens about the dangers of staying up late? C, to compare the sleep patterns of teens and adults? Or D, to explore what the right amount of sleep is for teenagers? All right, your last question on this page. What is the relationship between teenagers' internal clocks and the school schedules? Use evidence from the text in your answer. So you'll go back in the text to find where it talks about the teenagers' internal clocks and what time school schedules start. Don't forget to cite the text evidence. And when you're done with that, the back has some discussion questions. So number 1 says, how many hours of sleep do you get a night? Do you think this is enough? What is the perfect amount of sleep for you and why? So this is a personal question just for you. Number 2, in the text, the author explains why sleep is so important for teenagers. How does the sleep impact their emotional health and their performance in school? Describe a time when you got too much or too little sleep and how you felt the next day. So answer this question, how does sleep impact their emotional health and performance in school? And then tell us about a time where you got too much sleep or too little sleep and how you felt. Number 3, in the text, the author discusses some schools' decisions to make start times later. Do you think this would be a good idea? What time do you think would be the best time to start school and why? So in your opinion, is it a good idea to start school later? And what time do you think would be the best time to start school and why? And then you should be done.